one of my supervisors before, if he wants to talk to you something serious about work, of course, he would invite you to walk. He would say, put on your coat or your jacket, and we would walk 1 or 2 blocks from our office to Tim Hortons, and then he would buy me anything, coffee. But it's not about the coffee. It's about the conversation we had from the office to Tim Hortons and going back. It's a serious when he does that. It's a serious thing. And so that conversation of Jesus and Peter happened during the first breakfast after the resurrection. This is the third time that Jesus appeared, but the first time that it was mentioned that they have breakfast. The whole story is found in the last chapter of the book of John, which is chapter 21. In fact, many theologians call this the epilogue. And it says, later Jesus appeared again to the disciples beside the Sea of Galilee. And this is how it happened. Several of the disciples were there: Simon Peter, Thomas, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples. Simon Peter said, "I'm going fishing." "Well, come too," they all said. So they went out in the boat, but they caught nothing all night. At dawn, Jesus was standing on the beach, but the disciples couldn't see who he was. He called out, "Fellows, have you caught any fish?" "No," they replied. Then he said, "Throw out your net on the right-hand side of the boat and you'll get some." So they did, and they couldn't haul in the net because there were so many fish in it. Then the disciple Jesus loved said to Peter, "It's the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his tunic, for he had stripped for work, jumped into the water and headed to shore. The others stayed with the boat and pulled the loaded net to the shore, for they were only about 100 yards from shore. When they got there, they found breakfast waiting for them: fish cooking over a charcoal fire and some bread. "Bring some of the fish you've just caught," said Jesus. So Simon Peter went aboard and dragged the net to the shore. There were 153 large fish, and yet the net hadn't turned. "Now come and have some breakfast," Jesus said. None of the disciples dared to ask him, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. Then Jesus served them the bread and the fish. This is now the third time Jesus showed him to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. So when they had eaten breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than this?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to them, "Feed my lambs." He said to him again a second time, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." So that's the whole story. That's the context of the text. And so, as I have said, this is the first breakfast. And we also know that this is the story of the restoration of Peter into the ministry. Peter denied him 3 times, and so Jesus asked him 3 times if indeed Peter loved him. And it is in this breakfast that Jesus revealed the one and only qualification needed to minister to one another. Let us examine the first question. "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" In some versions, it's actually John. "Do you love me more than this?" So if you examine closely, Jesus asked Peter 3 times. This is the first question. The second and the third are the same. Jesus simply asked, Simon, son of John, do you love me? That's the second. But the first time, he said, do you love me more than this? Meaning, do you love me more than your friends, more than the rest? Now we will examine why did Jesus ask Peter this question? Why do you love me more than this? It's because if we go back to Matthew 26, after the Last Supper, they went to the Mount of Olives. In Matthew 26, verse 31, we read, then Jesus said to them, all of you will be made to stumble because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. And in verse 32, but after I have been raised, I will go before you to Galilee. In verse 33, Peter answered and said to him, even if all are made to stumble because of you, I will never be made to stumble. And so in verse 34, Jesus said to him, assuredly, I say to you that this night before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. But you see in verse 34, Peter answered, even if all are made to stumble because of you, I will never be made to stumble. So Peter has that self-confidence in himself that even if others will fail, I will not. This is the character of Peter, of course, before his restoration. Again, this is a wonderful lesson. That's why Jesus, do you love me more than this? Jesus wanted to dismantle Peter's arrogance. That's why Peter, he's a quick learner. He said, yes, Lord. But now there is no arrogance in his answer. He didn't say, I am better or I am less, but he said, you know I love you. So he now surrendered himself to Jesus, Jesus who knows our being, who can read our heart. Peter this time appealed to Jesus how Peter loved him. You know, Lord, how I love you. I don't know if I love you more or better than the rest, but you know. So now Peter, he now removed his confidence and put that to Jesus. This is a wonderful lesson for every one of us. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. We shouldn't have that overconfidence that everything hangs in our shoulder. We need to complement each other. Where I am weak, somebody should take up that weakness of mine. And so your weakness, somebody should take care of your weakness, because all of us are called into the ministry. Peter did not express his own opinion of his devotion. Peter appeals to Jesus, who can read all the motives of the heart, to judge as to his sincerity, which brings us to our lesson number 1 in Philippians 2:3. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Some years ago, there was this person who was a part in the Sabbath program. And so he was happy, but then the moment he entered the church, the person was in the lobby. To his or to her surprise, his or her name was not written in the bulletin. And the person was really disappointed and frustrated. Our communications team makes that mistake. We make mistakes in our bulletin. And he was so frustrated and disappointed that he refused to do his or her part for that Sabbath. And so the elders scrambled to get a replacement. He was at church, but he refused because his or her name was not written in the bulletin. Imagine that one. So is that serving? Is that about love? That's why when we serve, it's all about love. Because when we love, we do the best we can. In fact, they say, when you love, you do crazy things. When I was courting my wife, She lived in Santa Rosa, and I lived in Manila. And it was just 30 minutes away from Manila to Santa Rosa. But that time, when I was courting her, the skyway was being constructed. And it would take 3 to 4 hours travel from Manila to Santa Rosa during that time when the construction of the South Luzon Expressway and the Skyway was being built. I don't care. I don't mind. There's no hard for me because I love her. And so I would go home 8 o'clock in the evening, and I would arrive Manila shortly before or after midnight. And it's good that her parents understand. They wouldn't allow me to go home without eating dinner. Very understanding parents. That's why I also love my parents-in-law. So there is no hard things when you love the Lord. Whenever Peter says, "Yes, Lord, I love you," Jesus would always say, "Feed my lambs, feed my sheep." In other words, when you say, "I love you," there is some kind of obligation that Jesus would tell you. Jesus is looking for proof. Did you love me? Yes, Lord. All right. Do something about it. So this is not the first time. Earlier in chapter 14, Jesus started by saying, "Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me." However, if you jump to verse 15, it said, "If you love me, obey my commandments." And in verse 21, it says, "Those who accept my commandments and obey them are the ones who love me." So we cannot fake that love. The point here is that Christianity is never a passive religion. If you said you are a Christian and you love Jesus, you must be doing something. All right? So if you have not done anything, then you might be a passive Christian, which is not really possible, because when you love Jesus, when you are a Christian, you must be doing something.